Mark Walsh here from the Embodied Facilitator course, recording in Moscow today where I'm working. So this is a video on how to be a bad coach, how to be a bad coach working with the body specifically. So what I mean by bad, I mean unkind and ineffective. So I mean morally bad, but actually that's where I'll start. So this is a nice way of thinking. A nice way of thinking about kind of like improving your skill in something is to actually go the opposite way and say, like, if I want to be really shit at this, what will I do? And then you can just not do that stuff, yeah? Or go in the opposite direction. So how would you be a terrible life coach, terrible executive coach? I've been training coaches from all over the world for the last, God, I've been around coaches for 15 years, but the last about 10 years, training them, last 5 years quite intensely in about 30 different countries. I see coaches from, all different schools, ones I really like CTI, Newfield, Integral Coaching Canada, ones I don't like so much, I won't mention the names. So yeah, have got some sense of some of the pluses and minuses of different schools and different individuals as they come to a lot of courses. So how might we be a really bad coach? Well, let's start with ethics, maybe the most important things. Having a frame of not putting someone first, not being of service, right? Like if, that's what we get paid for as coaches. So not putting someone first, not being of service, breaking confidentiality. In embodiment coaching terms, it means things like touching people without permission, not cool, not respecting boundaries in those very practical ways, not calibrating. So going in too hard and too fast. For example, there's one coaching school that uses like these grabs to trigger the stress response in people, and that's just not cool if someone's come from an abuse background. You don't know that, right? So starting gently, calibrating. So if I wanted to be a really bad embodiment coach, I'd just be jumping on people. This is an exercise we do actually on the Embodied Facilitator course. We have people lead like the worst session in the world, and it's a lot of fun, and it really points people to the other direction to move in. Yeah. What else might we be doing? Worst coach in the world. What might I be doing? Talking all the time. So I think if listening is one of those key skills, and this is one for me I have to watch out for as a kind of talky Irish type of person. Yeah, like talking over our coaches the whole time. I think we can, as coaches, talk. We can even teach. Yes, it's allowed, but not telling people what to do, and certainly, not just talking the whole time. The skill of listening and critically letting people come up with their own solutions. So this is a kind of humanistic framework that life coaching is generally within. This idea that people are able to figure out answers to their own problems. And I always look at it like, even though I'm kind of arrogant, I look at it with some humility and go, well, I don't know their life. I don't know all their problems as well as they do, and I don't know the potential solutions they might have, the resources they have. So that so if they want to be really terrible coaching, it would just be telling people what to do, advice giving, which A is going to come up with crap solutions that don't fit their life, but B, even if it was a really good solution, it's not going to stick, right? They're going to go, well, he told me that. They haven't got the same buy-in. This is one of the things I really love about coaching is that people, because they come up with the answers themselves, they're owning them, and they're much more motivated to do the embodied practice or whatever the action steps are that come out of that. So yeah, so I think telling people what to do would be a critical one. If you want to be a terrible coach, you should do this. And judging people, that kind of moral frame, if you're a bad person if you don't, right? So the kind of another kind of humanistic standard for coaching would be basic non-judgmentalism, right? Staying away from that. And it doesn't mean we don't have any values for ourselves, but staying away from your good or bad, the should or shouldn't, right, wrong, generally want to stay away from. Though we can tune people into their own sense of right and wrong, of course. If not, that whole domain is out of the window. Okay, so what else could we do as terrible coaches? So not listening to them, telling them what to do, not being culturally adapted. That would be another one. Thinking that I can coach a Russian person like an English person. Okay, now while we have individual differences we want to adapt to, and as embodiment coaches we often see those differences. Someone comes into the session and goes, right, let's do the coaching, let's get on with it. And someone else says, hey, I've turned up for the coaching, it's nice to see you, Mark. Well, there's state differences and there's also character differences that we're seeing a mixture of those like right away, so we can adapt to those, right? With some people, I remember coaching someone at a festival once. This guy had like a problem with his career. He wasn't doing the work he loved. He said, Mark, I heard that you're good at coaching people to do the work they love. Can you coach me? I said, you know what, I'm kind of at a festival, but I'll give you 10 minutes of my time. Buy me a coffee. I'll just do 10 minutes. We sat down. It wasn't the normal boundaries around coaching, so terrible coaching thing. And there were some people nearby, and I said, look, I want to just go for this with you. I could see that he was like resilient, that he wanted that direct yang style. And I just sat him down and said, look, you're wasting your life. Again, we might say normally terrible coaching, right? Judging someone, whatever. And I said, fucking sort it out. And what are you going to do? And I was just like, bam, bam, with the questions. What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Because I knew we had a limited time frame. I knew that I could adapt to his way of being. So in that situation, like terrible coaching would have been like not adapting and actually doing the more traditional, kind of more empathic, soft listening. And there's a few people nearby. I remember these three girls, and they were like afterwards said, "God, you're a monster. If you ever coach me like that, I'd just run them out." I was like, "Yeah, but I wouldn't coach you like that." And the dude was like, "That was the best session ever." And a year later, I bumped into him. He was like, "I'm now doing my dream." And it was something like, he went to work in the circus or something crazy and cool. He's like, "I'm now doing it." I'd be like, "Can I buy you lunch? I'm so happy." You know, I totally coached the shit out of him in 10 minutes, which you just wouldn't normally do in that way. So adapting to the situation, adapting to the personality, you know, the three people that have heard wouldn't have been good for them, adapting to the culture. So if you want to be a terrible coach, like not adapting to any of those things, like, you know, your client turns up exhausted or your client turns up hyperactive from the work because they've been working so hard. Okay, we need, you know, a terrible coach just wouldn't even hear that, the responsiveness, the being able to tune in as an embodiment skill. It's that being aware of the empathic resonance and being able to see them on Skype, hear the tone of their voice. You know, a lot of clients come on and they're like, "Mark, you know, okay, great, we're on the coaching call," and they just sound stressed, you know, from their life. They're running 1,000 miles an hour. And first thing, you know, it's just like, okay, let's do some centering, look it up on my videos, slow down. And I'm hearing that. So again, you know, if I wanted to be a really shitty coach, would be like just not hearing the state that the person's bringing. And when, you know, when you've met someone a few times, you start to realize what's state and what's character, what's culture. So adapting to those things as well. So terrible coaching, we're not adapted to that. I think also it would be, terrible coaching would be, if I wanted to be a really bad coach, I'd leave someone just with the insight and I wouldn't do anything practical. So one of the things I fucking love about coaching is it's really practical. It's like, what are we going to do about it? Yeah, what are we going to do to get out of this mess? As an embodiment coach, like what practice will build the way of being that you want? You know, how can you practice your centering skills? So, you know, for me, if I want to be a really bad coach, it'll be like, yeah, we've had this insight and just leaving it there. Yeah, so then getting, you know, really for me, would be missing that step of the accountability, the action plans, really concrete, really nailing it down, getting a very concrete, pragmatic plan of action in. So that's something else I would avoid. You know, I think in a way I haven't mentioned the most important one yet. These are all like techniques and things to do. So to be a terrible coach, I'd say not to work on oneself, not to be self-aware. You know, I'm constantly doing personal growth work and I still have like massive flaws and holes in my psyche, shadow, I'm sure. I'm told. Yeah, and so not to work on oneself, I think would be the quickest route to being a terrible, terrible life or executive coach. Not to manage one's own state. So I noticed I've just been in Moscow, central Moscow, it's really fast. And doing this video, I'm trying to slow down a little bit. Now I know I'm still pretty quick, but it's a lot more than I would be if I wasn't self-aware and self-regulating. Yeah, working on myself long term, the shadow work, my own resilience. So, you know, just been spending time with a loved one, you know, like building our own capacity, our own resilience, practicing what we teach, embodying something from an embodiment coach point of view. It's obviously having the practices, having the 10,000 hours behind you, you know, having the daily practice. You know, I meditated this morning. You know, that kind of foundation of practice. So maybe the most important one. So I'll leave it there. There's loads more I can say. If you want to put in the comments, this video is already getting a bit epic. So if you want to put in the comments, what would make someone a terrible coach? As I said, it's a great thought experiment for learning. You know, like in order to sort of say, yeah, we can do something different from this. We can go in a different direction. If you're playful and fun and cheeky like me, it's kind of a nice way into it. So there's my thoughts. How to be a terrible coach. If you're interested in embodied coaching, look up the Embodied Facilitator course and loads more videos on this channel about coaching. So do subscribe, like, and send me Christmas cards. I don't fucking know, whatever. Okay.